I have fallen in love with inspiration. I'm the guy who would always say, and I wrote it in The Attractor Factor, I'm in the movie The Secret saying it, that intentions are fantastic. Intentions rule the earth. State your intentions to go out there and defeat the world. Intentions are incredibly powerful, and I love them. But there are stages of awakening, at least 4 of them. And I wrote a book called The Awakening Course where I went through them, and I think they're all in at 0 as well. But intentions are only on the 2nd stage of awakening. It's a cool stage. It's empowerment. And you can state intentions for what you want to have, do, or be, which is fantastic. It's certainly better than being a victim, which is the 1st stage. But those are only the first 2 stages. There's still the 3rd and 4th. Hooponopono is actually with the 3rd. That's when you are surrendering. But it's not surrendering in the sense of giving up. It's surrendering in the sense of joining forces with what Dr. Huland always called the divine, or the whiteboard, the divine. When we were doing the 0 book and the 0 limits seminars, he always called it 0. And it seemed like it was a wonderful state to be. So we called it 0. I now call it the great something. The great something. And my new singer-songwriter album, the one that I've dedicated to Melissa Etheridge and was inspired by my meeting with her, is coming out, and it's called The Great Something. Because when I refer to this whiteboard as the great something, I'm referring to the mystery without the baggage. If I say it's God, again, too many people have memories about what God is. Memories meaning programs, beliefs, thoughts, limitations. So they don't understand, they can't understand unless they go through their own concept of what this is. So we want to keep doing Hooponopono. Now, as I keep doing Hooponopono, new phrases have come up. You're all specialists with I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. But there's at least another one that I want to tell you about. Do you feel ready to hear it? Yes. Anybody not want to hear it? Okay, good. I have found that inspiration is more profound, blows my socks off, so much bigger than intentions, and I don't want you to think I still don't do intentions. This morning at 8:30, we still didn't have the carpet on this stage. And the stage was smelling of mold, and the stage didn't look good. I knew that my speakers and myself wouldn't feel good on it. I knew that we were videotaping this, and it would probably show up, and I didn't want it to look cheap. And so we did make our calls yesterday. We were told that the thing would be here this morning at 8 o'clock. At 8 o'clock, it was not here. And so I went to Matthew, I think, Chuck, and Harry Be Happy, and I said, I need your help with an intention. I said, I would really like to have the carpet here before we begin. You know, if it doesn't happen, I was okay with that. We would live with it. We would be fine. But I would prefer, my intention was, it would be here. And I looked over right after I said it, and I thought, oh, look, it's already there. But my mind had played a trick on me. It wasn't there. And Harry said, oh, no, it's just a premonition. It's coming. 5 minutes after that, the carpet was here. But it was a combination of my stating an intention to the great something, but not being attached to it. There was a spirit of letting go. So when it comes to another phrase that I think 100% of you want to know about, first of all, know what's going on right now. 3 lines on the whiteboard. On the great something, there's 3 lines. What is your mind doing? Yeah, you're trying to fill in the blanks. This is what your mind does all the time. It is hardwired for your survival. And you can thank it because you're all surviving. You're all here, alive, well, healthy, in this beautiful oasis of a ranch. But your mind in any situation is looking around, computing and looking for where's the danger? What does this mean? What could it mean? And you're filling in the blanks. And the blanks you fill in, they could be great. They could be entertaining, they could be educational, but they're not what I'm trying to get across. The first word is I. You know from statements from Dr. Huland in both of my books, At Zero and Zero Limits, he often ends his communications with peace of I. What is the I he's referring to? It's not you as an I. He's referring to the divine, zero, the great something, the void, the nothingness, divinity. That's the I we're referring to, and it's important to understand that. And this, before I even write it, I'm going to tell you, how many of you want to blast through any and all blocks you may have currently. Melt them down forever. Actually experience the freedom of being inspired in every moment and realizing the miracle of the moment. How many of you would like to have that feeling? Yeah. 2 hands went up. Does anybody here not want to have the feeling of bliss? Surely there's somebody here who doesn't want bliss. The single most important thing you have to do is you have to forgive everybody. Most importantly, and from advanced hooponopono, the only person you're really dealing with is yourself. But you have to look within, and wherever there is unfinished business, incomplete stories, resentment, anger, lack of forgiveness, that is the block to your spiritual awakening. That is the block. It's right there. You can come up with all kind of other stories, but when you condense them, it's going to be a lack of forgiveness. It is huge. But this is the internal switch that has to be flipped in order for you to experience that awakening, that sense of enlightenment, that sense of being at peace. You have to forgive. This statement is all about forgiveness, but I'm stopping there because the word forgive, I actually tried to do research on it, and I couldn't find a real good definition of forgive or forgiveness. It usually in the dictionaries refers to releasing resentment or releasing anger. But it doesn't give you a definition like if an alien from another planet came here and said, what is this forgiveness you talk about? I wouldn't know how to describe it. Yet each of you knows what it is, right? You all know if there's somebody or something or yourself that you're holding on to and not at peace with, that you've not forgiven them. This statement is about forgiving. It is I, meaning I of divinity, not the I, you, not your name, not Joe, but divinity forgives myself. I forgive myself. We'll make it more grammatical. I forgive myself. Now, it's also important to realize what's the self we're talking about. What are we referring to there? This is referring to divinity or the great something. This is referring to your data. So the great something is forgiving your data system, your beliefs. It is your beliefs, it is your data, it is your memories that is causing the lack of forgiveness. Make sense? And so by saying, divinity forgives myself, it's saying divinity is forgiving my wiring, my mental situation. I forgive myself. It is a new phrase, it is an advanced hooponopono phrase, and this phrase, with this understanding of what it means, helps you release anything and everything. Because if there's any blocks going on in your life right now, any blocks at all, there are beliefs that are actually creating it. The beliefs are not coming from the other people. That's a whole separate mind-boggling concept, is to realize we're all in this game of life. In one way, you look real to me, but from the hooponopono standpoint, you're all a mirage. You're all an illusion. You're all a projection. You're a projection from inside of my own brain. And if I didn't like my projection, I'd be saying, I forgive myself, the self being the part of me that created what I'm not liking. And the cleaning up that I'm doing in here is a cleaning up of perception. That's all, perception. Because you're looking at a miracle in your life, and you're thinking it needs to be other than what it is. You change your perception, and what you're looking at can transform. This is what Dr. Hulen did with the hospital folks. He's seeing those people, he's looking at their charts, and he's repulsed, he's angry, he's astounded, bewildered, he's ashamed, all of these things. They're internal perceptions. He is erasing on the perceptions. As he erases on the perceptions, those patients got better. But it wasn't about changing the patients, it was about changing him. I forgive myself. Does it make sense? So I was talking about how this all makes sense in a context of an overview of an awakening. And so it's important to realize that the very first stage that most people are born into is called victimhood. And Henry David Thoreau said, the mass of men and women lead lives of quiet desperation. And you all know people who are still there. They're struggling. They're desperate. They want out. And they blame everybody else. We've all been there. Man, I was in poverty for 10 years. I was homeless. I mean, I know what it's like to look out there and say, it's their fault. Not my fault. How can it be my fault? I wouldn't do this to myself. That's the victimhood stage of awakening. The second stage of awakening is the empowerment. And that's when you see something like the movie The Secret. Or you attend a seminar. It could be Landmark Forum, which has helped a lot of people. It could be any number of things. It could be a book. It could be one of mine or one of the many that are out there. And you suddenly awaken to choice, to intention, to responsibility, to choosing happy thoughts, to being optimistic. That's a great stage to be in. Empowerment. Feels fantastic. Third stage is surrender. Now, when I wrote Zero Limits, I talked about 3 stages of awakening, only because I didn't know there was a 4th. Not when I wrote this book. By doing the hooponopono, over time, I learned about the 4th stage, and I wrote about it in here, and I told you I'm going to take you to that place. The third stage is surrender, and that's when you realize, yeah, you have control. You have the power of intention. You can choose to have, do, or be what you want, but you're not God. You're not the divine. You're not the great something. Something else has the last vote. And my example of this, and if you read At Zero, you know part of the story. When my mother was dying 5 years ago, and Narissa and I were called in to my family, and we're all in the hospital, and she was in intensive care in the emergency room, and so intensive, there's only 5 other patients there, and 3 of them died while we were there. This is how intensive it is. And my mother is there, and she is dying, and she is confused, and she doesn't even know why the family's there. Why is everybody here? What she would ask. And I'm there, and I was angry, I was upset, I was grieving, I was confused. I was going through this tidal wave of emotions. And I thought, man, I am not helping anybody by being in this place. So I sat down in the chair and just did hooponopono as I knew it at the time. I just had the 4 phrases. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. I wasn't cleaning on her. I knew enough to clean on me. So I was cleaning me, I was clearing me. I was doing my best to get to a place of peace. Do you know what I mean? Because I was not. And that lack of being at peace was not helping. So I did my best to get to a place of, I would not call it bliss, but I was at a place of neutrality. We'll say that. It was enough that I felt, okay, I'm okay, and I can't do anything here. I'm not a medical doctor, and they don't need anybody's help, plus we have to leave. We leave. Well, my mother suddenly gets better. Not totally healed, but she got better. She was relieved. She went home. She lived for another 5 years. She lived for another 5 years. Now, I can't specifically say what I did changed her, but I can say what I did changed me. And by changing me, I sent that ripple out that touches whatever part of the mirage is out there that can be influenced. But my mother did die a year ago this month. Had I had control, total empowerment, was God, she wouldn't have died. But stage 3 says you have to surrender. That doesn't mean give up. That means make alliance, an alignment with the great something. You make an alignment with the great something. Some of you know I wrote a book on P.T. Barnum, the circus giant. It was called There's a Customer Born Every Minute. And even though he was wildly successful as a marketer, as a politician, as a writer, as a speaker, and brought so many acts to the world, we still know his name today. What almost nobody knows is that he kept surrendering. Even his tombstone was a little tiny thing that I saw in Bridgeport, Connecticut when I was doing my research back in '97. And it says, "Not my will, but thine be done." That's very much a divinity, hooponopono, great something aligning statement. It's like we do everything, much like with the carpet on the stage. I'm setting the intention. I even get my forces, so I have kind of a little mastermind going on. It's not just me intending it. I got a couple people here on my side saying it. But not my will be, but thine be done. Maybe I wasn't supposed to have a carpet. As it turns out, I got one, and I love it, and it's looking great, and I feel at home here, and it makes a great story. But not my will, but thine be done. And so also, there's the fourth stage. The fourth stage is awakening itself. That is the stage of enlightenment. And what my experience has been is that you cannot make that happen. You prepare yourself for it, but you can't make it happen, because to make it happen means your ego is trying to dissolve your own ego. This is beyond the ego. This is beyond the mind. Awakening is awakening to your oneness with the whiteboard, your oneness with divinity, your oneness with the great something. Now, as I'm standing up here, the thought rushes into my head, do you understand the implications of this? This means in any moment, no matter what's going on, you have an escape out of jail card. You can slip out of the dilemma and the perception that things are bad or things are wrong or things need to be somewhere else or something else, and you can be in the bliss of the whiteboard. Now, I'm going to take you there here in just a minute, but I want to tell you another story. You all know who Melissa Etheridge is, the singer-songwriter, rock icon. I've been a fan for 20-some years. Last November, I got to go to her house, had a 2.5-hour songwriting lesson with her. And I think about that lesson, and I think about her every single day. And a part of me has asked myself, how am I able to extract so much out of that 2.5 hours with her? I wrote 4 blog posts, lengthy blog posts, about what I learned from my 2.5 hours. I have reflected on the meeting, some of the things that she and I talked about or she told me that I didn't put in any of my writings. I've thought about writing a book about my 2.5 hours with her. And friends of mine say, you know, Joe, you bring up Melissa Etheridge about every 15 minutes. You find a way to talk about her every 15 minutes. And I can't help but wonder if we all looked at our moments with that kind of sensitivity and that kind of awareness, that we would be in awe of this moment right now. Back in the 80s, I had worked for a big oil company in Houston. It was a job I hated. I cried going to work every day, cried going home. Some of the seniors there admired that I was trying to be an author. They would see me writing on my lunch hour, and they were curious, and some of them were critical, but 1 or 2 of them were very nice about it. And then as decades went off, and I was in the New York Times, Time Magazine, I was on, in the movie The Secret, I went on Larry King, all of this. One of those guys, who was nice back in those days, wrote me, and he said, had I known that I was hanging around such a gem back then, I would have spent more time with you. And I remember thinking, we're all spending time with gems. They don't always end up in a movie like The Secret. They're not always rock and roll legends like Melissa. But if we look at each other and we look at this moment and we go, this is it. This is it. There isn't another moment that's better. Your mind will say, yesterday's moment was a lot better than this one. Or your mind, more likely, is going to say, later on, I'm waiting for the other speaker I'm waiting for Joe to get off the stage. The other one's going to be better than this. The mind is going to be playing tricks with you. But the stage of awakening I'm talking about is actually being here. I mentioned it last night during the little social time. And I think this is my most important work. I don't know how to get it across. I came out with the book, The Miracle. And The Miracle talks about all of this and all kind of processes. And it talks about all the different stages of awakening. And I have a meditation in there that you can read. I'm going to lead you through it right here live. That leads you through it. But I don't know how to get it across in any bigger way. And then I remind myself, you're all a mirror anyway. You're not supposed to get it. I'm supposed to get it. When I look at this moment with the idea that this is it, this is the miracle, this is the one we're all chasing, it's this moment, when I look at it, something can trigger in my mirage, and you can all see it too. And actually, as I look out over you, your eyes and are all lit up, and your faces all seem to have these lights on them. I can't help but wonder that there somehow is an ignition that's happening right now. Is that correct? Yes. You feel that? So there's the 4 stages of awakening, and the 4th being the awakening itself. And again, it comes by grace. You can prepare for it. I'm going to tell you one of the things I do every day that I encourage everybody to do, but this is one of those, hey, you need to clean on it. You need to just decide what works for you. But I swear, and I've written about it in both of these books, we need to make time to receive. We need to make time to listen. This whiteboard, this great something, this divinity is trying to send information and trying to send inspiration. But we're so busy with what we already have in our head, the memories, we don't hear it. One of the reasons I've been so productive with, I think I've written 50-some books. I think some people have said 60. I've lost track. My album is coming out. The Great Something is my 6th songwriter CD. But I've come out with 16 albums altogether, many of which made with guitar monk Matthew Dixon over there. And part of this is I'm able to produce when others can't because I'm deleting the self's programming and I'm listening to inspiration. And because I don't have any blocks when the inspiration comes, for the most part, I mean, stuff still comes up. But for the most part, I don't have blocks when inspiration comes up. I'm able to go ahead and act. Inspiration comes, I take action.